Here's why you should hold 1,000 XRP until at least 2029. Supposedly, it's going to be one of your best financial decisions because if you compare it to all the other investment instruments, it just comes out to be a pretty good risk to reward. I mean, there's many articles written about why you should be doing this, but I don't care about what anybody else says. I want to analyze it myself. Would it be a good idea to hold 1,000 or more XRP until this year? Would it be stupid? Would it be good risk, bad risk? Let's talk about it. First off, we have to compare it to other asset classes. For example, the S&P. What is the average return of the S&P 500? And if we were to put, $1,000 or so into it right now, what will we get back by 2029? So 5 years from now. Well, taking a look at the recent years, most of these have turned out to be like plus 25% or so, but then you have yourself a pretty big dip in the midst. And it turns out that if you average it out over a longer period of time, well, it comes back down to 10.4% or so per year. If you take it out for a very, very long time, it's about 8 point something percent. So what I've done here is insert a $10,000 initial investment with no monthly contribution, a length of 5 years, so from now till about 2030, and then put an interest rate of 8% in with about a variance of 10%, meaning the highest it'll show is plus 18%, the lowest it'll show is minus 2% over this period. Of course, that is per year, by the way. If we then take a look at it, what becomes quite interesting is that if we start with $10,000, if we just get ourselves about 8% a year, we'd end up with about $14.7 thousand. Definitely not too bad. And in the better scenarios, we end up with $23,000. Of course, if the market turns against us, we lose about $1,000 in that period. And so we estimate about a 50% increase or so, if not slightly more, over the next 5 years in our balance. Not too bad, but wouldn't gold be better? It's also a good comparison to make. Now, before I dive into what exactly I think of that, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be giving away $50 to a single person in the comment section. All you got to do is press that like button and comment something. And if we get to 1,000 likes today, I'll give it away. However, there's a caveat. If we get to 1,200 likes, I'll give $50 away to 2 people. And if a lot of you guys are commenting, no, just give it to more, what we'll do is we'll just give $20 to like 10 people or something if we get to 1,500 likes. But for that, I also want you guys to put a little comment down because I'll actually maybe pick half from the YouTube comments and half from Instagram comments. So if you comment something under one of my Instagram posts, I'll also grab half the winners from there. So I think the best way to take a look at gold and how its performance has looked is actually to take a look at how gold has performed relative to Bitcoin. So the trend I've got in front of me is the Bitcoin to gold ratio, and it basically shows you, as you see on the bottom here, the ratio in the chart above divides the price of Bitcoin by the price of gold. It represents the number of ounces of gold it takes to buy a single Bitcoin. Now, at some point, you can see that was 0.00 something, but over time, it's basically increased to where recently here, it's about 40, right now back down to 25 or so. But that's basically showcased that over time, Bitcoin seems to be a better investment than gold, at least in the recent history it has been. And you can really see that it's slowly but surely just creeping upwards and upwards and upwards. And even though the results are sort of deteriorating, upwards it still goes because this is logarithmic. Now, putting that out there, Trump just sent gold and Bitcoin flying by saying, "He who has the gold makes the rules." So it's kind of funny how he's also pushing for gold, yet Bitcoin still has outperformed gold tremendously over this time. And I'd say it just begs the question of, well, if Bitcoin has outperformed gold, and gold recently here has been outperforming the stock market, or really has already given us a plus 50% gain in between the start of the year and to now, year to date. Now we're between a rock and a hard place. We're basically along the lines of, well, we either go for Bitcoin because it's generally speaking better than gold, or for stocks, but that returns about a 50% or so return over these 5 years. So now let's just compare Bitcoin and the stock market. I don't really even think I need to show you, though, just how much better Bitcoin has performed than the stock market over this time. Again, 50% or so in 5 years. Let's take a look at Bitcoin's recent performance. If we just take a look at Bitcoin, for example, from this bottom that we saw prior, let's quickly just go to normal. There we go. And see from the bottom up till now, it's up roughly 500% or so in the past 1,000 days, so about 3 years. If we just take a 5-year recent period, right? So let's just go back to about 2020. Let's just say Right now it's about April. Let's just get this April of 2020. Now I know that was a bottom, but if we take a look at the performance, it's up 1,200% or so in this time, from $7,000 to almost $90,000. Now, if we were to replicate some sort of similar result, or really only a very small portion of that, we'd beat the S&P by far. So I'd say Bitcoin is set. It makes sense to hold some Bitcoin for these years because there's a very high probability that unless it crashes to zero, it's going to outperform the S&P and going to outperform gold, just like it has done over the past, well, basically since its inception. So now comes the question only for XRP. But realistically, what we've seen for XRP is a massive impulse throughout November and December, actually a little bit towards January as well, with a slow but steady decline. What we're expecting right now is the moment that it breaks out, XRP is going to have another momentous rally, a crazy rally that can most likely only be stopped by Trump's new tariffs hitting in about 2.5 weeks from now or so. But again, taking a look at it even from a different angle, we've had ourselves about a 7-year wait or so for the XRP price to pop out. I kind of feel as if the moment that this happened right now, it was a 7-year wait, from this point on forward, things are going to start looking way more flourishingly. Basically meaning that in this period here, you could have gotten unlucky, even though there were only very short amounts of time where if you'd bought that, you'd be at a loss for, because generally speaking, the price has been slowly but surely upwards. Take a look. It's actually been mostly just slowly but surely upwards, with 2 crazy spike periods in these points, and of course right now our recent bull market spike. But what I'm saying is, if you take a look at XRP price right now at roughly $2.11, what is the probability that over the next 5 years, right? So the next, let's just call it 1,500 days or so, it'll never be able to get above the $3.16 mark again. So again, just last month we got there, $3.16. You're asking yourself, what is the probability that from now, let's just grab it, from now all the way to right here to 2021, what is the probability that we'll never go above this high point again? I personally think it's rather small that we're going to be seeing a similar sort of move like what we saw back here happening again, because the lawsuit is gone, all the negative pressure towards XRP and crypto really is gone. I think mostly it's just a change in trajectory more towards the upside rather than just only sideways. And again, we can have sideways for a while. What is the probability we have that for 5 years with not a single massive break towards the upside over 5 years of a period? Because again, put into perspective, we've never for XRP had such a long sustained period of gains. Back in 2021, we had a little bit of time at these heights, but really it was a crazy impulse and a crazy impulse back down. This time around, we've had a crazy impulse up and slow but sure descent, which is significantly different because right now we're building a proper base. And so to build as we've built a base, it is so much more likely that at some point or another we have another leg upwards. Me personally, I think it's almost guaranteed, but I never want to say that. I'm just kind of trying to put the perspective out there. How small is the probability that this is really the highest point that we'll ever see? And I'm not just saying that we'll never go above 212. I'm just saying that we will never go back close to those previous heights, or at least not in the next 5 years. I personally think the chance is so small because at that point, you're saying 2 bull markets as well. This bull market, let's just say it lasts another 8 months or so, right? Usually there's a few years in between until you see the next high. Let's call it 4 years. At that point, we've got 2 bull market chances. And you're telling me that this coin will not see any greater height in 2 bull markets? Yeah, I just think that chance is ridiculously small. And it doesn't really matter if you go for an XRP or for a Bitcoin or whatever, but it's now about probabilities. It's now about the idea that if I don't have at least a little bit of these coins, right? I've already described before why I say there's a very good chance we're actually going to go way more exponential and see the $20 or $30 mark, even just within this season. Is it not worth it? Again, I'm not your financial advisor, nor am I a spokesperson for Ripple or XRP or whatever. Do as you please. But is it not a pretty high chance that we're going to see some sort of exponential move and that it's worth it to try it out? Anyway, as you guys know, I open XRP trades all the time. Here's the one we opened just yesterday. It's up, let's just quickly see, about 20% or so since we opened this trade. If you also want to trade XRP, or really any crypto for that matter, I've got some links down below to, for example, Blowfin or WeX. Now, on Blowfin, that's where I mostly trade on. You can actually use it from anywhere in the world, but you might need a VPN in some countries. WeX you can use from anywhere in the world, and you will not need a VPN for anything. It's actually one of the most popular exchanges, crypto exchanges right now. If you press this link for Blowfin, though, you get yourself some pretty juicy rewards, a 10% cash back of up to $1,000, a Rolex potentially worth $10,000, or you get yourself a MacBook or an Apple Vision Pro, just some cool stuff depending on what you want. You can just get this in cash. You don't have to actually get the item, obviously. If you want the top 3 exchange, there's also a link to Bybit down below. It's one of the biggest exchanges in the whole crypto space, but a lot of countries are not allowed on there. Or if you like to trade more with bots, there's a link down below to Payonics. I'm going to do a lot more tutorials about that in the next few days. Anyway, just choose whichever one you prefer the most. You can also just click them all on and see which one you like. But for this video, I just use Blowfish. And I've also got an account that's still in, I think, a 300K XRP trade or so at a significant loss, but it's because we got to be a bit patient. Anyway, here's the Bitcoin chart and all this show. Oh man, there's so many exciting things. I just keep thinking about the fact that it won't be long before the XRP bubble just bursts. Not towards the downside, but mostly with another leg towards the upside. And I'm excited for it. But yeah, that's about it for this little crypto update. If you want to trade, links are down below. Make sure you press that like button. Don't forget about our giveaway. And see you guys again in another crypto video somewhere later.